So you'll be happy to know this doesn't take a half hour. That's number one. So we're going to probably get you out of here a couple minutes early, if nothing else. So as you heard earlier, I'm the business director for the University of Alaska Fairbanks Unmanned Aircraft Centers, the Aquasi program. And I'm also the executive director of the FAA's Unmanned Aircraft Center of Excellence. And you see it says interim down there. I've been in the role since the summer, and it's an interim role working and supporting the lead university, which is Mississippi State University. So we're going to quickly go through what the Assure program is. Please raise your hand if you've heard about the Assure program. Ooh, this is going to be really short. Okay, so that's perfect. So we'll go through this real fast. So what is Assure? The long title is the Alliance for System Safety of UAS through Research Excellence. It's one of those deals where you've got a proposal and acronyms are great, and then you got to figure out what words fit the acronym that you've come up with. We've all done that a bunch of times. No difference there. What is it? Well, Assure is the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA Center of Excellence for Unmanned Aircraft Systems, and it's using research evidence to influence policy. So we're now, okay, we're not cutting the lobbyists out. Let's not lose our minds here or anything. But what we're doing is we're providing real facts back to the Federal Aviation Administration on unmanned aircraft based on our research. And we're still a baby. We're only 18 months old, so we're just getting started. But it's a big program. It's 22 schools and over 110 companies or other industry partners. So what is a FAA Center of Excellence? Well, Centers of Excellence are entities with some substantive ties to universities. All of the Centers of Excellence are run out of the William J. Hughes Tech Center. Our program manager at that level for all COEs is Dr. Pat Watts. And Centers of Excellence get their funding through two mechanisms. The first one is through grants. Grants have a mandatory 1-to-1 ratio, cost ratio or matching ratio, and then IDIQ contracts, which have a negotiable match. So 1-to-1 match. Kathy wants to do a project for University of Alaska Fairbanks. By the way, I can tell you that the Assure program is not rigged. That's a good word. We hear rigged a lot lately. It's not rigged. I run the program, and University of Alaska Fairbanks has never received one penny from it, by the way. So just to let you know, only 2 universities have not received any funding, UAF and UC Berkeley. Davis, thank you. So the cost share, it's a $100,000 project, so Quasi UAF wants to work, it's a $100,000 project. It's accepted by the FAA. The FAA provides $50,000, and Dr. Cahill has to go find $50,000, okay? So not necessarily the easiest task sometimes, but we're all used to finding matching dollars. But we're talking about, in terms of the unmanned aircraft industry, it's actually sort of real money. It's $5 million a year for FY15, $5 million for FY16. So we've had $10 million injected into the program so far. We do not know our $17 yet. I had a call earlier today, and we were talking about it, and someone said, well, maybe we'll know tonight. Well, I'm not sure about that. I don't think we're going to know tonight how much we're getting, but we're going to receive a minimum of $5 million, and we're hearing rumors of up to $10 million for the program for FY17. So maybe there's some money in there for you or something like that. So you saw this this slide earlier from Jay Skaggs put it up. This gives you the team, right? So you're going to recognize most of the members of the core team here. Of course, it's led by Mississippi State, University of Alaska Fairbanks, Oregon State, Kansas State, University of North Dakota. We've got some major programs, aerospace programs here. Embry-Riddle, Kansas, as I mentioned, Kansas State, Wichita State, very large program there. And we've got the University of Southampton in the UK, and we have Concordia. Now, those universities are not core universities, and they are not allowed to receive funding from this program. That is U.S. federal dollars, and it can't flow out of the country. But they are deriving benefit from it. They are associated with some of our projects. This is a bit of an eye chart, so don't even bother trying to read everything on it. These are the formal partners. This gives you an idea just of the size and the magnitude. Several people in here, your companies are listed, your organizations are listed as partners. You might not have known you're a partner. I get that sometimes. And you can see it also has an international component. We have quite a few representatives from Canada that are part of the program. The UK has representatives, again. And so this gives you an idea of the magnitude and the size of the Assure program. So we're quickly going to run through the project. So we all talk about, you heard Ted talk, by the way, I'm glad I don't follow Ted directly. It was bad enough following Mark. You can't follow whales. If you follow whale videos, you're going to lose every time. You got to get in front of them. It's hard, but I'm really glad I didn't follow Ted, all right? He's tough. But we all heard him talk about ASTM and standards. Well, this project is led by Kansas State. It's actually to certify a test case to validate ASTM F38. And so Kansas State, with Wichita State, developed a flight test program based on ASTM F38. And that was submitted back in September with some deliverables, and it's now being in consideration from the FAA. It's been interesting as we've stood up this past year and a half because the team that's been assembled inside the FAA to take these results in are really, they're in some of the cases as new at this as we are within the Assure program. So they're still trying to pull this data in. And this was one of the first projects that reported out. We actually have quite a few that are reporting out in November. So this is a New Mexico State, a small UAS detected board requirements necessary for limited beyond visual line of sight operations. It is in the current, it's task one, really the very first phase of this project. And again, it's New Mexico State. New Mexico State has a very solid, done a lot of work at beyond visual line of sight, electrical infrastructure, etc. This project is getting more attention than any other project. This is airborne collision severity evaluation. So, Joanne, I don't know the latest numbers. I was at a U.S. event in Edmonton, Alberta last week. The question was asked, if you go back 2 years ago, it was 20 or 30 a month, right? There was reports back up to the FAA, then it was 50, then it was 70. Someone in Edmonton last week said, it's over 100 a month now. I don't know. Do you know? Do you hear? You actually read this stuff, so.
They do. I probably see 5 of them a day, maybe more.
Okay.
Well, for a weekend,
How many days a week do you work a month, though? Is it over 100 reports?
They've been someplace around there.
So, I'm like a lot of people in the room. I fly a lot. I'm as interested in this being right as anybody else, right? So this was led by Wichita State, several other players. This was a modeling exercise. Wichita State led the airframe. Ohio State led the engine ingestion piece of this, and it was all modeling. The program management review was conducted last week in DC. We're getting contacted weekly by CNN and ABC and NBC, really, really interested in this because this is where the rubber meets the road. If there is an impact, an air-to-air impact, what happens? What happens? Says currently writing the final report is true. I have the draft final report in my inbox and looked through it. This is getting lots and lots of attention. The plan for the next phase of this is to shift it over. Ohio State will take lead, and a containment vessel will be built at Ohio State for the actual launching into the engine. Right? We've got a couple manufacturers lined up to help donate. That'll help on the match. So what was it? 2 weeks ago, the American Airlines there was a engine that shelled and went external, turbofan. So not from a drone, by the way, it just occurred. I want to clarify that. But really interesting, and like I said, getting more attention than anything else. This is second to that. This is ground collision severity led by University of Alabama, Huntsville. And in this case, it wasn't just modeling. It's a kinetic energy study actually using small unmanned aircraft that are being launched into the ground, effectively, and measuring kinetic energy. The reports of that have been sent back up to the FAA, getting lots and lots of interest. And it's different. The feedback we've had in the last couple of weeks is the data, this kinetic energy data that has come back up is different than what is currently being used. And so people are now looking at it. And what's interesting is we're now providing facts. This is the research, this is how it's conducted. And through all of these projects, There's technical interchanges meetings, at least monthly, sometimes every 2 weeks. And so everything from the research methodology to the entire process, right along the line, is heavily monitored and guided by the FAA. U.S. maintenance, this is sort of the unsung hero, right? We never really talk a lot about maintenance, but it's very important. Greg Foskew's here in the room. He has a huge fleet. He's responsible at UAF. For those that didn't know, the UAF, the Aquasi program is the largest unmanned aircraft program in any university in North America. It's huge compared to others, right? So Greg is responsible, along with Tom, for this fleet of unmanned aircraft. Maintenance is a part of that. This has been led by Kansas State, and they've been contacting some of the larger users of unmanned aircraft universities. They contacted UAF to find out, in fact, how they actually maintain their records, their processes for maintenance of their aircraft fleet. Final report on this one is due back in February 2017. Surveillance criticality, led by North Carolina State University, designed to develop a safety assessment process determining the dependencies of onboard surveillance technology and aircraft separation assurance and collision avoidance. This is currently in analysis and simulation. The report is due actually in November of this month. Probably been delayed by about 30 days, by the way, so it probably won't be until December. Human factors, this one is fairly interesting. It's being led by Drexel, very solid human factors program. So this is functional allocation or function allocation. So this is actually leading into another project. This is providing feeder data into another project. So we're flying our aircraft, and we have some processes on board that aircraft that are controlled by the operator or manually controlled. We have some processes that are semi-autonomous, and then we have some processes that are fully autonomous. So one of the things that this project is doing is looking at what should be manually done, what's semi-autonomous, and what should be fully autonomous. And then does that change? Does that change depending on your situation? If you are dealing with a non-participating aircraft, you detect that aircraft should, in fact, the pilot or operator go hands-off and let the system take care of it. Right? I mean, this is just a question. But what functions should fall into what categories, and is it locked in or should it change? This is actually feeding in. The final report is due in December 2017, so next month. UAS noise certification. This was very simple. Now, in the community that a lot of us are in, which is the science and research, you just saw Mark's presentation, the work that UAF is doing, other universities. There are a lot of scientists and researchers in the room here. We tend to think of noise in terms of impact on marine mammals. In this case, or the wildlife. In this case, it's actually very simple. It's the basis of 14 CFR Part 36, an assessment of whether manned aircraft noise standards are appropriate for unmanned aircraft. And this has actually already been submitted and is sitting with the FAA right now. Secure C2 inspector man, so command and control. Ohio State, this is a brand new project, it's 3 years long. Our first projects were 6 months to a year. Now what we've asked the FAA for these projects is to make them longer in duration. We're able to apply staff, get staff working on them, and keep them working right through. So in this case, investigation state-of-the-art multi-user interface. I have to read it. I can't keep this in my head. Anti-jamming techniques. So anti-jamming. So human factors, this is A10. Now the reason, let me go back. So one that's not up here yet because it hasn't been awarded, but it will be soon. So here the FAA is funding this investigation of state-of-the-art multi-user interface, basically anti-jamming, anti-counter UAS technologies. But very shortly we'll be awarded a contract on counter UAS technologies. And I know that may seem counterintuitive that we're being funded to do both of those at the same time, but the fact is both are very, very important, right? Very, very important. And so that's where this is going. Did you want to talk to this a little bit? Do you mind? Do you want to talk to this, Joanne?
Oh, I thought you were looking at that.
No. Did you want to talk to this just a little bit, because this is sort of your world?
I don't know enough
On this.
On this particular project.
Yeah, but in the bigger picture, on the command and control, and the spectrum management, and the counter, especially counter is a huge area. Human factors, U.S. control station. This is the feeder. What's coming from A7 is now feeding in to A10. We have a number of further projects led by Amber Riddle. And basically, this is very, very focused on the GCS. Basically developing the perfect ergonomic design for a ground control station. And this was a Part 107 waiver study. It was a very fast reaction task. It went to University of Alabama, Huntsville, who had done some work that led into this. This was very simple. It was developing a successful submission process for Part 107, waiver to 107 on operations over people. That has already gone back in to the FAA. Minority STEM, this was led by New Mexico State, and this was a STEM effort. This would be a perfect fit if the program is able to grow, and we're encouraging it to grow to bring it up to Alaska. Alaska could desperately use something like this. In this case, there were a couple of road shows 3 weeks ago, about 70 participants at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, and between 400 and 500 in New Mexico. They actually had to change the venue. They were looking for about 200 people in New Mexico and had between 400 and 500 actually show up. They had to change the venue. It was a huge success. So, what are the processes? Well, from up until October 1st of this year, from the inception of the Assure program, how research topics were selected was a white paper was submitted to the FAA for their consideration. They have a committee that reviews all the white papers. The University of Alaska Fairbanks was on between 8 and 10 white papers, most of them as the lead. The problem was we took the machine and we dumped concrete into it because we submitted over 70 white papers, right? I submitted a whole bunch myself, I know. And it was way more than they actually had. This committee, this group of people, had the ability to review. So, starting 1 October, we no longer submit white papers. The universities, the core universities, no longer submit white papers up to the FAA. They receive a research topic from the FAA, which is then sent to the core universities for consideration, and then collectively we develop a team, put a lead university in front, and it's going to be one that makes sense and is acceptable to the FAA, and then that goes forward effectively as a mini proposal. It's negotiated and a full proposal follows it. So it's a significant change in process from the way it was before. And really it came down to the reason we were doing that was they were looking for us to come back with based on what we believe was needed. It really does need to be driven by the FAA, and that's where we're at now. So you can see your revised process. We have upcoming projects which will, one is in the Airworthiness Council. So historically, the Assure partners have not received funding. The core universities have received funding, but our industry partners have not received any funding. And so when I took over as the executive director, I was really struggling with this because we're going to industry and saying, hey, Sean, your company that's worth several $1 million, you guys are very successful. We could sure do some research that would help you out. Could you give me some money? And you say, yeah, I've got some IR&D money, and that's just perfect. We can do this. Can you share the results of the research with me? No, I can't do that. But can you give me money anyway? No, I don't think I can do that. So one of the challenges here was to be able to release the research results back to industry, to be able to have a better relationship, to encourage them to support the cost matching. So we have worked through a process that allows us now to actually fund industry up to 25% of the project value. And they can't be the face of the project. They're not allowed to be the face of the project. The core university is the face of the project. So we are working through some changes right now, which I strongly believe will be beneficial to the Assure program and to our community, to our managed craft community. And again, this is referring to the research information. Advisory groups for sure. We have a senior advisory group that is government only. It's made up of SES level individuals from the United States Air Force, Department of the Interior, Department of Homeland Security, except several others. We have a commercial advisory group. We will be meeting at New Mexico and Santa Fe. Both of these groups will be meeting down in Santa Fe. And we're currently reviewing these groups and the composition of these groups and really trying to figure out the benefit to the Assure program and the Assure program's benefit back out to primarily industry. We have to ride a really fine line, right? We need to engage with industry, but at the same time, we can't be seen to give industry a competitive advantage. We can't say, okay, we can do this with your company, but we can't do it with your company. We can't do that. And so we're working our way through the process right now of encouraging more engagement, potentially funding industry, sharing research results, but at the same time understand there are limitations to all of that. So one of the things that was happening was other government agencies were contacting the Assure program and saying, hey, we really would like to use members of the Assure team to work on some research for us, unmanned aircraft research for us. And these are other government agencies. So two things came out of that. One was the FAA is not interested in being a pass-through for other government agencies to get to the Assure team. The other thing that happened is sometimes they wanted more than what the Assure team had. They wanted people that weren't on already, companies they were already familiar with. There's a certain comfort level. And so Mississippi State has started a 501c3, which is the IRS code for an applied R&D, nonprofit R&D. And it's called Assure Research and Development Corporation. And it's currently being formed up. There's a website being formed up. And that really is to come and meet, it's really been developed to meet market demand. In the past week, there's a teaming agreement that's been put together for that. There's lots of stuff happening with that. Now, there'll be more information coming out on ARDC in the near future. But we already have, there's a lot of people already very interested in this because of the nonprofit and the honest broker status that ARDC is developing and building as this nonprofit. And that's it, folks. I told you it would be a half hour. Are there any questions? It's so good to see y'all.
Thank you, Marty.